Hello and welcome to another bottled Sky Devlog. I'm going to keep this video short because honestly I've been pretty busy with non-game work and there hasn't been much work done on the game this month. Next month I'll have a lot more free time. If you saw my last video, then you know that I'm working on some music for Bottled Sky. I just wanted to have one piece of music that will loop as you fly around in space. If you're in my Discord server, link in the description, then you would have seen halfway through this month I uploaded some half-finished music that I've been working on. That is pretty much all I've been able to do, so for this video I'm going to go through the music I've written and how I used the motif library that I talked about in my last video. If you haven't seen my last video, my motif library is a collection of original musical ideas I came up with that may or may not be used for Bottled Sky's soundtrack. It's supposed to help me store ideas as I come up with them so that when it comes time to produce music, I don't need to summon as much creative energy on the spot, allowing me to put more focus on just production. Speaking of which, here's about 45 seconds of polished music that I've been able to come up with. So first off, I think what I've written is a little too energetic for the purpose I'm writing this for. However, I've shown this off to some other people who all collectively understood that it sounds like music for exploring, without any hints from me, so maybe I'm being too harsh on myself. I'm not going to scrap this because I really like the direction it's going and I can still use this for a different purpose. I'm not fully set on having an orchestral soundtrack, so I may change the style later, but not anytime soon. Next month, I may decide to put this aside for now and start writing something with less energy. I believe that if you're going to listen to a single piece of music on loop, it needs to match the energy of your gameplay. If you're mostly casually flying around in space, then music like that can get really tiring, which may cause players to want to mute it and run their own music. I know I've done this on occasion. Anyway, those are my thoughts on music production going forward. If you're not interested in how I used my motif library, then you may skip the rest of this video, but here it is. I prefer to use music notation software because I'm used to reading sheet music and I find this easier to analyze and break down. I'm not going to go through and play all of them because that will end up being half the video, so I'll skip to the first motif that I used in the music. The motif here was interesting mostly because of the rhythm I wrote for the bass line. I like how each bar starts with something that feels like a triplet rhythm and then switches back and forth with a faster non-triplet rhythm. I haven't actually written this with triplets, that's just the vibe I get because the first two accented beats are 3 half beats long. So far in the 45 seconds of music I've written, it all uses some variation of this rhythm. I will probably have a section in the music that uses a different rhythm and probably de-emphasize the beats significantly. That was a trend that I noticed anyway when looking at the opening main theme from various other games. The repeating ostinato pattern you hear was something separate that I wrote that was supposed to fit with this rhythm. I ended up changing the exact notes for the produced music, but it's still here. Earlier revisions of this music were actually more electronic than orchestral, but it's quite a lot of work trying to make your own sounds, so I opted for a switch to orchestral music because it was making things harder for me. The ostinato is still using a synth sound because that was one of the few things that didn't detract from the orchestral instruments, so I kept it. Next up, you hear this simple melody on the glockenspiel. This was not something in my motif library and was actually improvised while producing. I added it to the motif library afterwards in case I wanted to reuse this in other music. I liked it and created variations of this, first with a couple of woodwind instruments. And then again with various brass instruments. At first I was just sitting on E the whole time, not E major or E minor, just E. And in the next section, I chose to start alternating between A sus2 over E and A sus4 over E. This seemed to create some movement in the harmony without actually going anywhere, which is good because at this point I already knew what I wanted to do for the next section, which has the same harmony. I wrote another melody to fit this rhythm and harmony. This one is definitely a lot more memorable, and I wanted this to be what the whole song was building up to. I initially wrote this in the motif library in a slightly different harmony, where I alternate between E sus2 and E sus4. But as you can hear, it's not a huge difference to the chords I showed you earlier, and so I just used those. Looking back on this, I'll probably look at experimenting with and changing this because right now I'm having trouble figuring out where to take the song harmonically for the next section. I know this is a game dev channel, so if you're not able to follow the music theory terminology I'm using, don't worry, it's not required. I don't intend to make a habit out of focusing on the music side of things. If there was any progress on the game itself, then I would have talked more about that, but as I said before, I've been really busy with my job for all of this month. But by the time this video is out, I'll be back to my original schedule until about January, which is when I'll travel to Sweden and eventually be able to work full-time on Bottled Sky. If you've made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment what your favorite game soundtracks are. I've lately been listening to a lot of game soundtracks to look for inspiration. With that said, subscribe and I'll see you later.